Hey everyone. I had no intention of going on and telling you guys this, but it's been coming to me over and over that I should share this. And so I'm going to. I After I came back from the retreat that I just had, I came to my attention that some of my bio is going to be published anyway. So I figured, well, I might as well share it with you. Um, so it as you guys know, it's always a little difficult to start. Okay, so I was born in Madison, Wisconsin. My parents were teenagers. Um, I was born to two teenagers, and I'm not going to use names because I'm going to keep the privacy of everyone else. My parents were, my mother came from well, a kind of a well off family, middle class, upper middle class. And my father came from a lower family, lower echelon family. But they were both teenagers when they had me, and they were both runaways. And so they came when I was born. We They were runaways and in the foster care system. So when my parents were born, or when my parents had me, my mother first got pregnant with me, she was 15 and my father was 17. So they were both teenagers and in foster care. And so when they basically chose to have me because they were looking for the love they were not receiving from their parents. And so I was born, and because of the situation, they there was a question of whether or not they were even going to be able to keep me at first. For a little bit, there they were going to put me up for adoption, and then so when they did finally decide to keep me, my mother had a lot of problems because my father was very abusive. My father had come from a lot of stuff going on, and he had turned to other things for that. And by the time I was born, he had a habit. He was addicted to heroin and alcohol and all kinds of other stuff, of course. And so by the time I was 8 months old, my mother left my father. And we moved into this great big house in Madison, Wisconsin with over 50 other people. And it was by the fraternities and paternities. It was a co op. And there was 50 other people in like a 5-story house. And this is where I spent the first couple of years of my life. And I integrated with, I mean, this is where I started to remember things. Um, where I grew up right on the lake, and there was all kinds of people. It was basically a bunch of hippies. And there was, people, it was everyone from professors for the college, because Madison, Wisconsin had a top 10 college at the time. I don't know if it's still a top 10 college. All the way to people who were going to college. And so there was all kinds of different people. I remember some of my first memories were people demonstrating on the campus, for the apartheid, for women's rights, for things like that. Um, it was during my time at this house that I had things happened. Like I had I almost burnt, I had third degree burns. I had almost drowned in the lake because I loved to swim so much. There was all kinds of things that happened. But I also had some beautiful experiences. I learned about, I spent time in the garden. I spent time with all these different eclectic cultures. There was a lot of beautiful things that occurred while I was in this beautiful existence with this co op. After we left the co op, my mother and I, we moved to multiple different homes. So we lived in probably, well, it was close to 20 different homes in the next 17 years of my life. And so I got to experience a lot of different places, but I didn't really feel very stable. And I, because I didn't really know what it was like to have a very stable home ground. And so I was always experiencing lots of different places and cultures and home life and everything. But there was a lot of different things going on. And My brother was born a few years later. Um, and it was just my brother and I with my mother. My mother ended up getting ill because she had a lot of problems with trauma herself. And I ended up spending a lot of time with my grandmother. So my grandmother is someone who I really looked up to. And my grandmother was a pharmacist for over 50 years. So I learned a lot of things about medicine and healing and stuff from my grandmother. But we also got to do things like I would go camping with my grandmother. I would go canoeing and kayaking. And so by the time I was 5 years old, I knew how to canoe and kayak. So I would experience a lot of um, really extremes with my mother where we were having problems having enough to eat or having the things we needed, like a winter coat. But then I would go and do beautiful things with my grandmother. So I had the two polarities a lot in my life, and I experienced both versions. And because of that, I can see both versions very easily at this point. And I guess has become a blessing for me and seeing those sides. And so, but I didn't see that for many, many years. In fact, I didn't see that until recently. So, but um, there was because I was so caught up in seeing this all the hardship, and it was, all the things that we were struggling with, and I was absorbing all of that. And so I had a lot of problems with being sick and having accidents. I had a ton of accidents as a child. And I was the child who was always having ear infections or sore throats or, you know, n- all that kind of stuff, strep throat, those kinds of things, because I was absorbing all this stuff that was going on. And it wasn't until later on that I understood what all that meant. And so later, now I completely understood as I started to go into Reiki. It was like when I went into Reiki and I started Reiki, all the lights came on, and I understood why all of this stuff was happening, all the different accidents, all of the different things that had occurred, why all of those things have happened. And I understand all of that. And so now it's all been a beautiful blessing, a gift. And And that's where I get to have more compassion for other people as they have gone through their own experiences, because I have also gone through mine. So, with that, I send you guys so much